Hi friends, the following video is part of my SkillShare course, How to Write an Academic Journal Article. I hope that you find this video useful in isolation, but if you would like to have access to all of the videos listed behind me, the entire SkillShare course, you can click on the link below. This link will also give you 1 month free premium access to SkillShare. The first step in any research process is a literature review. So a literature review is a comprehensive search of scholarly sources, so that's things like journal articles, books, conference papers, that are relevant to your particular topic, your research objectives and your research questions. So when we're looking for sources, we want to make sure that they are relevant, we want to make sure that they're credible, and this is particularly important where there is now a lot of what's called predatory journals, which are journals which do not actually have a proper review process. They are designed purely to just make money, so people will pay some money and they will just publish whatever. So really important that we have credible sources, and ideally sources that are well cited. Not all of our sources need to be well cited, but we need to make sure that we are capturing the most important and most commonly referenced journal articles and pieces of research in our area. So at the very least, some of our articles should be very well cited. When we come to actually write up our literature review, the length of it can vary a lot depending on what journal we're writing for. But the amount of time that we put into searching for articles is still going to be pretty similar. It's really important that we have a good working knowledge of the relevant information and the relevant research that has already happened in our area. So when we're doing this, the first tool that we would normally go to is Google Scholar. Google Scholar is great because it's available to everyone and you can do a series of searches to look for relevant articles. If you have access to university databases, then these can be very helpful as well. If you're a member of a large public library, you may also have access to research databases in this way, but certainly Google Scholar will get you going with searching for relevant articles. You should start with search terms that are very broad and gradually make them more and more specific as you hone in on articles that are relevant to your research question. So when you find a reference, start by reading the abstract and determine whether this is actually going to be relevant to what you are studying. If it does sound relevant, then you'll want to source it. I've got some information on the next slide about how you can go about doing that. And so then read the article really carefully. As you go, take notes on the key points. You might like to include this in a spreadsheet. There are notes apps. There are also referencing software apps that can be used to do this. Whatever works best for you. But basically you want to have a list of the things you've read, the key points, and as you go you want to start linking those together as well. When you write the literature review section of your article, you want to be able to link the information that you've found in the different articles. When you read an article, one really helpful thing to do is to check the keywords. The keywords are going to help you with future searches. The other thing that you can do is look at the reference list. So when you're reading an article that is particularly useful to you, it's more than likely that it is going to refer to other articles that will also be useful for you. In order to source articles, there's a few different ways you can go about it. If you are connected to a university, the university library will normally have databases. Some public libraries have this to a lesser extent as well. Google Scholar is a very good way of finding articles, but it doesn't always link to the full text. So you may be limited to ones that aren't behind a paywall. A new tool which has just very recently been released is called Research Rabbit. And so I've got a link there. I've also got a referral code that you can use to sign in. It currently only searches a couple of sources, but it does some really neat visualizations. So I'd encourage you to try that in addition to Google Scholar. I hope over time it will start to access more and more articles because it's a pretty neat tool. PubMed is great for open source medical articles, and JSTOR has a lot of older articles. There's some sites like ResearchGate which are kind of like a research version of social media. Sometimes you can access articles there. But the last thing, and I wouldn't encourage you to do it as a first step, but if you can't otherwise source an article, you can always contact the researchers directly. They will often have what's called preprint proofs, where they've had to proofread and it's the last version of the article before it goes to press, and they'll be able to send that to you. So particularly if you are doing this and you don't have access to a university library, that can be pretty helpful. Most researchers get back to you, not all of them though, and it can take time. So if you can get things out of database, that's certainly where I would start, but contacting researchers can be a useful way of getting additional, not only the articles, but sometimes additional information as well. So we're doing our literature review. When do we stop? Well, the short answer is kind of never. If you're doing a PhD, you will certainly relate to this, where there is just more and more research being produced every day. You could just keep reading. Realistically though, we're not going to keep going forever. So what we need to be able to do is say, I've read all of the most important articles on this topic. So when I feel confident that I can say that, and when I'm reading articles and I no longer am looking in reference sections and seeing new ones that I should be looking for, that's a pretty good sign that I've been nice and thorough and I've checked off, at least for now, the relevant research. The first few articles you'll find will lead to lots more, but you should get to a point where you just start seeing the same references over and over, and those are normally the key ones in an area. So hopefully at this stage you'll now be able to write a comprehensive literature review. So you'll be able to link the themes and the information from the different articles that you've read. And as you do that, you also want to be able to identify what is the gap. So all of these people have done this research, but there's something missing, and your article that you're writing is the thing that's missing. So as you write a literature review, that's really what you're looking for. So depending on your data collection and what kind of research you're doing, you may like to start writing your literature review right now. In some cases, for things that are happening in a lab, you might just move straight on to data collection. But suppose you're doing a survey, you might write your survey. It might be out available for a couple of weeks for people to complete. During that time, you could be writing your literature review. Literature review will also help shape or reshape research questions and research hypotheses.